Welcome to Season 4 of Might in Motion, the podcast that champions motivation, momentum, mindfulness, and might. I'm Mariana Kinney, your host, bringing you conversations with inspiring leaders and innovators who challenge the status quo and push boundaries in their careers and lives. Whether you're here to grow, lead, or ignite your own journey, we're here to keep you moving forward. Let's dive in. Today, I am very thrilled to welcome Bryan Flanagan. He's a CEO of the Flanagan Training Group, but he also spent 14 years at IBM, where he learned about sales and people management. He is the husband to Cindy for 54 years, dad to Patrick and Quinn, and a granddad to Declan. He's not only a salesman, a sales instructor, and a people manager, but so much more. He was blessed to have worked with Zig Ziglar for 29 years and is currently the salesman and CEO of Flanagan Training Group in Plano, Texas. Bryan, welcome to Might in Motion.
Well, I certainly appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
I have really enjoyed getting to know you before getting you here on the podcast. And I know today I'm going to learn so much more about you and from you, which makes me really, really excited. We were talking a little bit in the green room before we hit record about something you said to me last time we met. And you said that when you manage people, there are 5 skills you need: hiring, training, developing, promoting, and releasing. And I was like, whoa, okay, I love this. I've managed teams for, over 20 years. And I love this kind of these 5 points. They're really, really cool. But I'd love to know more about that last word of releasing.
Releasing. Well, I've been hired and I've been fired. I've been on all sides of those. When it comes to releasing people, there's just so many things we need to embrace. One is due diligence. One is giving them a spot to increase, grow, develop. We call it performance plans at IBM, a PIP, a performance improvement plan, all the things that we do. However, here are a couple of things. It ain't the people you fire that bother you. It's the people you don't fire that bother you. I'm working with a large car dealership many years ago. They're well known throughout the nation. The owner has written a book called Customers for Life, and it's a strong organization. Very high esteem throughout the nation, especially in Dallas. And what happened is one of my branches, or one of the dealerships, the general manager said, my sales reps are coming to me and saying, why are you carrying these people? They're killing us because they're not very good. They're abrasive. We didn't do a good job of training them, but they're running off our ups. That was back in the days we called them ups. So it's not the people you don't fire. The people you fire, it's the people you don't fire. And what the salespeople were saying is that this is not a good thing. Take action. What the general manager was saying to me, that's hurting his credibility.
Yeah.
Now, when I worked with IBM as a sales manager, I tried to give people due diligence. I tried to give them every opportunity. However, when the manager is working harder than the employee to keep the employee's job, it's time to take action.
Yeah.
The other question that I've learned to ask is, I've got a situation, I've got an activity or behavioral problem. Is this person worth saving?
Yeah.
You have time to save this person. Who are you sacrificing with the other people on your staff to spend more time with this person? So it's very convoluted. And the other thing I learned the hard way, I was fired. Don't remember a whole lot about it. It was March 23rd, 1981.
You remember some details there.
I was wearing a blue shirt. But here's what I learned from being fired. Managers don't fire people. Managers deliver the message. You fire yourself. And I knew that I wasn't doing. I worked for a company, and personal computer business, and it was brutal. The leader was not, we didn't have shared values. He should have fired me, and he did. It took a while, but he should have. But what I've learned from that is that you don't do the job. You know before the manager knows. Your children are old enough, your children, your two are old enough to know when they've done something wrong.
Right.
And if you don't come in, mom or dad come in and hold them accountable to that, hey, it's a great deal. I can miss it. I can come in at 8:00 instead of 8:30 because I have no accountability. But what happens there is that you're causing a poison within the team. Everybody else shows up at 8.
Yeah.
Somebody told me that his best salesperson has become bad because he comes in late. He's wearing his accolades. And I said, well, what time? He said, well, sometimes 8:45, sometimes 9. And this is an 8 to 5 job. And I said, well, I'll tell you why he's the best, your best employee, your best salesperson. He's the most rested. He's sleeping in.
Oh my goodness. I think we've all had, whenever you lead a team, and we've all had those kind of associates, and there is that opportunity I think to ask that question of, is somebody worth saving? Because there's a cost to firing and rehiring.
Sure.
And so if you have too much churn, that can be detrimental too. So I love that thought process of, is that person worth saving? And when you start leaning in to try to save that person, are they grasping at that life raft? Because if they aren't, that's a telltale sign that maybe they're not in the right place. And having a conversation of, is this the right place for you? And usually that person will say, probably not. Like, I'm really more interested in doing this kind of job or this other kind of job. And when you identify that, you can help guide them somewhere they can really blossom.
And that causes you as a leader and as a company to have good street cred.
Yes.
Meaning that if I'm unhappy, but I'm going to tell you, look, take a month, continue to work, call in your customers, but I'm also going to give you time off to write resumes and search.
Yeah.
That's good street cred for me because people are trying to get into that company, not trying to get out.
Right.
So if that person goes out and tells others about it, the reputation on the street is good. Lou Holt said that he wanted his football coach, wanted his assistant coaches to be hired because everybody will want to come to Coach Holtz and say, grow me, develop me, train me, much like you've done all these other people.
Yes.
So it's a good nurturing or fostering ground for leaders if you're the type of person and the type of company that does that.
Yeah. I mean, I always took great pride when there's somebody that on my team gets promoted and then gets promoted again. And maybe they outrank me now, and don't take that as a negative. I take that as like somewhere along the line, I did something that hopefully helped get that person where they are now.
Right. Or it wasn't the right fit for you. You thought it was.
Yeah.
But it really had you had gotten the job, it probably wasn't the right fit. So sometimes it's good that you missed that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, in your intro, I talked a little bit about how, you were at IBM and then you went to Zig Ziglar. Can you tell that story? Because when we talked personally, just one-on-one a while back, you were talking about how you were seeking growth and how important that was for you as an individual, but then career-wise. So tell us a little bit about that story of moving from IBM to Zig Ziglar and why you did it.
IBM treated me well. I have a lot of respect for Big Blue. I was into my second senior year in college, and I got a job as a delivery boy for IBM. And I worked that last year. My wife and I got married the spring semester, I guess, back in 1970. And we both graduated in 71, and they kept me on. Great company. They provided training. And then I had the opportunity to go to Dallas as a sales instructor, which was a prime job in those days because you got to see everybody. You got a lot of exposure. I met people throughout the world, but mainly in North America. They came through the training. But I got promoted in 1978 to a sales trainer, and I couldn't sell. Those who can do, those who can't teach. Those who can't teach sales. So I was a little guy from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is a great place. But I was a little guy from a little town with a little image of myself. Kathy was from Chicago, Linda was from New York, Ron was from Seattle, Mike was from Atlanta, and I didn't think I could compete. Well, one of my buddies on staff said, "You need to buy this book." So I went out and bought Zig Ziglar's first book, See You at the Top. One book, one page, one sentence. I got to page 48, and there was one sentence that changed my life 46 years ago. The sentence is this: you cannot consistently perform in a manner that's inconsistent with the way you see yourself. Your children can't perform up here if they continually see themselves down here. Well, my mother told me that for 30 years. My wife had told me that for 8 years. We'd been married. But until I read that, I was missing success by 12 inches. And that's the distance from my head to my heart.
Yeah.
IBM had trained me. They taught me these things. I'd gone through practice sessions. I'd been in the field for 6 years. But intellectually, I knew sales, but I never felt like a salesperson. And what Zig Ziglar was saying, Bryan, increase your deserve level. I've got some things that'll help you do that. There are others out there, but if you listen to my stuff, I promise you things will change.
Yep.
And what I learned from that, invest more in yourself than you do in your career. Because this is so good. This may be a Jim Rohn quote. If you steal from me, you're stealing twice. But I believe it was Jim Rohn who said, personal growth precedes professional growth.
Yep.
So when you mentioned that you were building the person and the professional in your introduction, this is the place to be. Your audience, your listeners, your fans, we need to do that.
Yeah.
You build a better family, you build a better family unit. Build better family members, they build both of those. And people build companies. So I'm a big proponent, even though I was in the high-tech business for a little while, it's still high touch.
Yeah. It's interesting that you said that. The last episode, we talked to Jim Keys, and he talked about, he was a former CEO of Blockbuster and 7-Eleven. And so he talked about faith and knowledge. That connection is like the most powerful force you can have from an attitude, when you show up. Right. And he said, like, faith in yourself. So like that commentary, the thought process of how you were not going to be able to perform if you didn't have that belief system in yourself. And it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. I teach two things that people dislike. My two courses that I teach in various forms: public speaking and selling. And one of the things that we all have a fear of is standing in front of a group and exposing, being in the spotlight. But what I tell people is that fear and faith have the same definition. Fear and faith have the same definition. That definition is believing what you don't see is going to happen. Yeah. And why for 30 plus years I had the idea that bad things were going to happen or I wasn't worthy. My counselor and I never got to the area of my life where somebody taught it to me or I had a bad experience, a significant emotional event. I don't know where I got that because my parents were best in the world. My family's best. So somewhere along the line, I attracted this disease. And at IBM, I just didn't think I was worthy. And after studying Zig, I went out to San Francisco to the largest branch office in our division. What changed Bryan more than the sales Bryan? And when I got back to Dallas, I begged Zig for a job for 2 years, and he hired me in March of 40 years ago, March of 1984. And I brought to him the public speaking course. Then I wrote the sales curriculum, and I traveled the world presenting and speaking, and it was quite a ride.
And if I remember correctly, you were able, my understanding was that you kind of created this position, this opportunity for yourself within the Zig Ziglar organization. And sometimes people they're waiting for that perfect opportunity. They're waiting for the perfect role. But the same thing that you were talking about, having belief in yourself, is sometimes you have to create that opportunity.
Yeah, I kind of created the opportunity. I wanted to go to work for Zig, and I'm not sure they would have hired me full time. But if I had the customer base, I would sell this new program to his customers. So I developed a 2-day presentation skills course. The original title was Public Speaking and Other Coronary Threats. But it was a 2-day class, and we separate ourselves and I still teach it, by recording people 10 times during the 2 days. And there's a lot of work on their part, but we teach two skills at a time they practice. So I went to Zig and I said, we can do this, and you don't have to be present. You don't have to be present to win, to make money. Go do your thing. Let us do this. So that was kind of the start of a corporate training division. We had our own separate sales team, and we sold primarily presentation skills and selling. We moved to leadership and management skills later on. We added customer service, but it was just a great run. He was at his peak. He's a good guy, the most consistent man I've ever met, had great faith, and was humble. Those combinations are tough to find at a person at his level in the pecking order. Everybody elevated him to that level because he was so consistent. But that's what got us started 40 years ago, and it's been a good career for me.
That is awesome. Hey, listeners, I hope you're enjoying this conversation as much as I am. If you're finding value in these insights, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you're listening. Your support helps us reach more people and bring even more inspiring guests to the show. Let's keep building this incredible community together.
My definition of leadership: the ability to gain the willing cooperation of others to achieve things they want to achieve by doing things they don't want to do. Now, you and I call that parenting.
Yes.
and my wife calls it spousing. But the point is, there's if you break that down, it's the ability, it's a skill. And I don't trust natural born salespeople, nor do I trust natural born cardiologists, because I don't want a natural born cardiologist ad-libbing through my chest cavity. I want somebody that's trained, that knows their profession, takes pride in it. Well, the same is true in leadership. You can have an outgoing personality, and that's charisma, and people can flock to you. But do you have the ability to gain the willing cooperation? Do you have the skill necessary to find out what they're trying to achieve and why they're trying to achieve it? Not everybody who sells wants to go into sales management.
Right.
Not everybody at IBM wanted to be transferred outside of the San Francisco area. So I developed something called the inner view, not an interview, because I inherited these salespeople. I didn't choose them we didn't start all over, get rid of everybody, new manager. I inherited these 14 salespeople. And one of my all-time favorite guys didn't work for me. He worked for another sales manager in the branch. And I said, John, I'd like to come in and talk to you. I want to put you on the promotable list. He said, great, I appreciate it. I'm honored. Thank you. I said, John, I think you have the talent and the ability to be a director. I think you could go to Boulder with products. You could go to Atlanta with finance. You could go to Dallas with training. He said, wait a minute, you're trying to relocate me? I said, yeah. He said, let me tell you my goals. Good. Tell me your goals. I want to raise my family in Oakland, California, fish, and play slow pitch softball. I don't want to go to Atlanta. I don't want to go to Dallas. I like it in the East Bay. So I developed this thing called the interview, which means let me get an inner view of the employee, not just here's your quota, you're supposed to sell X amount. What do you want to do with that? Do you want to get your wife into a position where she can stay at home? Do you want to position yourself so you can move school districts? You want to pay off student loan? So there's a lot of things that go into why I do, the Simon Sinek, the why. And if I understand that, then I can say to him, if you want to go in that direction, I think you have the ability to do it.
Yep.
But I'm going to give you feedback along the way. So if they're going up here and suddenly they veer off, you stop them in engagement and say, what's the deal? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Well, you said you wanted this, but the activity is not leading there. Well, three things happened. He didn't know about it. He he changed goals, or he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know how to do it. He didn't have the skill set yet. If he changes goals, that's great. I need to know that. If
Yep.
you want skills, let me help you more than I'm helping you. Or let me get you into learning a skill and going to a class or taking a seminar or whatever it was in those days. But I
Yeah.
found that to know your people as people and not as units of production is so valuable.
Oh, it is. It's unbelievably valuable because then you can figure out that people are motivated by different things. I mean, I've had the folks that they just want the money. Okay, okay, there's only so much I could do there, right? There's folks that um they want to be seen as the one who is the go-to to train and to be the not the know-it-all, but like when somebody new comes on board, they're the onboarding guy, or
Yeah.
gal. And I think what's interesting is that, you know, I, I left, Fortune 50. I'm now at a company of 40 people. And for the first time ever, we did reviews. And I come from like a long history of reviews. Like this was kind of like standard,
Yeah.
corporate
You,
thing to do.
you grew up
And
with
some of these folks, it's the first time they've ever had one. And one of the questions that I pose during an annual review is like, what can we do better? What can we as a leadership team do better? And one young lady, she was so great. She's like, I want to think on that. I'll come back to you. Perfect. So a
Mhm.
week later, she comes back and she's like, hey, I love that there were kind of these self-reflecting questions about like, what do I like? What motivates me? She's like, but next time ask me what demotivates me.
Oh,
And I'm like, whoa, like I never know. Okay, cool. Why? You
yeah.
tell me what demotivates you. And she was like, well, I don't really like public recognition because I'm afraid I'm not being gracious enough in accepting that recognition. I don't want to
Mhm.
like accept it, but then somebody else did a lot, helped with it. And I forgot to call them out publicly too, or, whatever. She's like, I would prefer that being more like behind closed doors.
Yeah.
I never, like it's not something that historically I would have asked, in a review process, but I'm like, that is a really powerful question to ask.
Yeah.
And I think
It's,
that goes to your interview process.
yeah.
You want to understand the whole person, not just parts of who they are.
And at IBM, we had a 100% club. Made quota, you went to a nice resort. Now, the 100% club was domestic. It would stay from usually LA to Miami, those and sometimes San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
After I went to Miami the first time, I'd seen it, one and done. So the
Yep.
next time I made the club, it was in Miami, and I said to my boss, "Can I bring my wife?" No, it's you can, but you're not gonna be around her for 3 days. This is what we do, but you're certainly welcome to bring her, but she's not gonna be involved. I said, "Well, how about this? If I make 100%, would you send me to Pensacola? That's halfway, and can my wife go with me?" He said, "No." All right, so that was not incenting me. The
Mhm.
motivation and incentive was not there the second go around. Now, the third year was out in San Francisco. I'd never been. All right, so I get to the Ziglar Corporation, and we're talking about salespeople in this corporate training environment, brand new. Let's put an incentive. And at the time, we had 4 guys, all men, working for us. Cowboy boots, expensive cowboy boots for the winter. So a guy named Weldon came to me and said, "I'm from Perry to Texas. I grew up in cowboy boots. I don't want." I said, well, what do you want as a reward?" "I'm getting married. I'd like 2 first-class tickets to Hawaii." I said, "Wait a minute. It's not equal money wise. It's a lot more." He said, "No, I understand that.
Yeah.
So raise my quota higher. Make sure you get enough money out of that to pay for the first-class tickets to Hawaii. And if I hit that, bigger incentive." So that's what we learned again, that if you can, 5 people, 4 people, it's easy to have individual goals
Yep.
and they can help you. Bigger companies, you can't do that. But I'm not motivated to go travel again without my wife.
Yeah.
But IBM couldn't do that for 3,500 people. So that's kind of what we were stuck with. And I respected that.
Yeah.
But I brought that into management, trying to figure out what turns them on and turns them off.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love that. Now, I know we're kind of getting close to time, but one of your specialties, as you mentioned before, is helping people speak and be, seen as a public speaker. And as you mentioned earlier, that's one of some people's biggest fears. What maybe are some tips that you could give on a podcast that might help somebody overcome some of those
As
fears?
opposed to skills, we teach 12 skills. We teach 2 at a time. And after those 2 skills, they actually practice in front of a camera and we give feedback to everybody. But let me give your audience three principles, foundational principles. Now, 2 of them are dynamite. I just don't know which 2. So stay tuned to all of them. Number 1, my audience is more forgiving than I am.
Oh, yeah.
So I ask people, who's your worst critic? And they say, I am. And I said, no, not unless you're married. Marriage is grand, divorce, 200 grand. So your audience is pulling for you. They don't want to sit through a 30-minute boring lecture. Your audience is more forgiving than you are. Number 2, your audience does not demand perfection.
Yep.
Your audience demands effective. And if you're managing me, I want an effective manager, not a comfortable manager. A comfortable manager doesn't want to have conflict. They don't want to call you on the carpet. They want to postpone it to the performance review and let all that time lose all that time that they could have been coaching you. So I want effective. We get into speaking, we get comfortable, but we have these distractors that don't add, they steal from our personal presentation power. So move to an effective zone. And the third thing that I've seen Zig do from day one, this is so good. Here it comes. Give yourself permission to be less than perfect, but never less than professional.
Oh, that's
Zig
nice.
is at the top of his career by his peers. He's in downtown Dallas speaking to 12,000 people in Reunion Arena. And I've got to get a prop for this. I'm sorry. And he's speaking to them and he says something that was just not right. And he looked at the audience and they were nudging each other. What do you mean by that? Well, Zig realized what he did. So he took off his glasses. He took a step back. He said, recently I spent $450 on these glasses. Now my tongue doesn't work. And he moved right back into his presentation. He had an amazing ability to take himself lightly, take the audience, the moment, and the content seriously. He was very humble, and he could make a mistake and laugh at himself. A lot of speakers can't do that, and they cause tension. Oh, I'm sorry, I miss this PowerPoint. Hold on a second, let me go back to this PowerPoint. Well, that causes a little tension in the audience. When in fact, let me go back one slide. I want to elaborate on this. Your audience is more forgiving than you are.
Yes. Yeah.
So those 3 principles, to me, stand in good stead. Not the skills, it's more of an attitude. If you embrace that and understand that they're pulling for you, that you don't have to be perfect.
Yep.
Just get convey meaning. That's our definition of effective skills. Convey your meaning, then you're okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I've done public speaking and been in, theater on stages since I was a very little girl. And it's probably one of the best gifts my parents ever gave me was the encouragement to take the risk of being and I say in quotation marks, on a stage. That could be anything from reading at church or singing in the choir to, going and actually being in a theater performance. It helped me very early on realize that it's okay if you don't hit that note or if you misspeak a word or, whatever, because you're doing something that most people are afraid to do. And so out the gate, you have a lot more leeway than you think you have.
And people that can string a sentence together with conviction and confidence and poise are oftentimes given a credit for an intelligence they don't necessarily possess.
Yes.
But we are a visual society.
Yes.
We appreciate somebody that has a little bit of stage presence. They don't have to be actors, or you don't have to be Robin Williams to do this, but it needs to be enjoyable, not necessarily entertaining. Right. But if you're not enjoying it, I'm not enjoying it.
Right. No, 100%. And so speaking of enjoyment, I've really enjoyed this conversation with you, Bryan, which I knew I would because I so
Thank
enjoyed
you.
getting to know you a few months ago. If the audience, if there's somebody out there that's like, I really want to learn more about you, or I want to leverage your training program, what's the best way for people to reach out to you? And I'll drop the links in the show notes as well. But what's probably the
Okay.
best way for people to connect with you?
Well, I'm still a phone guy, but my cell is always with me, and it's area code 214-505-5109.
Awesome.
My email is pretty easy since my name is in the cell there. Bryan@flanagantraining.com.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
I'm doing a lot more one-on-one coaching than I have in the past. COVID kind of moved me a little bit in that direction, but I still enjoy the classroom. I still enjoy speaking. And like I said, it's been a good career. And selling is at the heart of it. Selling
Yeah.
has taken me literally around the world.
Which is such an amazing gift that in your lifetime to have been able to do that. Yeah, I love taking my notes whenever I'm talking to somebody, and there's some things that I wrote down that resonated with me that I wanted to just kind of highlight here at the end. So the first one, you said, and I probably miswrote down this quote, but you cannot consistently perform if you don't see yourself as able to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And so having an increase in your deserve level, you talked about that for yourself.
Deserve level. Yeah.
It opened up doors, and you want to be willing to invest more in yourself and show up, because that's going to open up opportunities for you in your personal life, but also in your career. You also kind of talked about how like charismatic people are going to flock to them. But if you're going to be a really, really good leader and get that willing, collaboration and buy-in from your team and harnessing that, you've got to understand the individuals on your team. You leverage what you called the interview instead of an interview, where you could learn about their goals and what they want personally. And then you can use that to help motivate them towards, actions and goals for the organization. We talked as well about fear and faith having the exact same definition, that if you believe what you don't see will happen. And so why not take the positive side of that instead of the negative side? And then you gave some really great insights on releasing. And when you have a team and you've got the as a leader, you have to make decisions sometimes on hiring and firing and all those things. But we dove a little bit more deeply into releasing people, that you have to embrace due diligence and make sure that you've done the due diligence around that person and giving them some space to grow. But it's the people that you don't fire that aren't performing are the ones that are going to hold not you back, but your whole team back, and create a toxicity. And so if that person is worth saving, great, go after it. But if they're not, you should free them and free yourself so that you can continue to help your team grow.
Yeah.
And then lastly, and this is where I think some of the biggest golden nuggets are, because I love public speaking and I know so many people are afraid of it. You gave 3 highlights of some principles. The first one being like your audience is more forgiving than you are of yourself. And so they're pulling for you. So you lean into that. Number 2, your audience doesn't, they don't demand perfection. They just want you to be effective in how you're leading that conversation, leading that presentation. And 3, give yourself permission to not be perfect, but to always be professional. And that's phenomenal. I think, and we've all seen like the viral videos of somebody who doesn't take that into account, and you just don't want to be that person. You should show up with professionalism at all times. So the great principles to share, Bryan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been a great conversation, and I really appreciate you spending time with the Might in Motion audience today.
My pleasure. Be more than happy to help. I like to contribute. Give me a shot at it.
Sounds great. I put all the links in the show notes. And so go ahead and reach out to Bryan, because he is a great resource. For everybody listening or watching, thank you so much. Don't forget, subscribe, like, comment, share, review, all the things, and have a great day. And thank you for tuning in to this episode of Might in Motion. Remember, every step forward counts, and the power to create momentum starts with you. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It makes a huge difference. Until next time, stay inspired, stay mindful, and keep moving with might.